Kathleen Kennedy possibly stepping down. What y'all think about that, man? Because I personally don't. Oh, okay, we got somebody who's happy, it seems like.
Yep.
Let me ask you. Go
ahead.
Wait a minute. I think I can start with this.
Go ahead.
We all know Star Wars is a very
near and dear to your heart,
sensitive topic for this group to talk about.
Hey, we not cutting off. We not cutting off today because this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to get straight subject that we're gonna get some. We're gonna talk about Game of Thrones today too, because I want to. I want to get straight into like shit that's gonna start a dumpster fire.
So let me say this. Kathleen Kennedy leaving Star Wars, I think is a good thing or a bad thing? It's too late. The movies have been made that she was in charge of. None of us can do about it. Do I like the Disney sequels? No, I don't care for the story. Visually, stunning. Like I watched that clip I sent you, like the remake clip. They're visually stunning. Are you asking me, do I care for Jon Favreau to be in charge of it or Kathleen Kennedy? Favreau, like how can you not? Like how could I not? Like what I've had from her versus what I've had from Jon Favreau, and then what he's done with the Mandalorian, Star Wars universe.
It was Favreau and Filoni, right?
Right, yeah, and Filoni, right? So we got Favreau and Filoni. Rumored to kind of take this stuff over. Like I can't be upset.
And Lucas is coming back too. Sorry, forgot to mention that too.
Right, like I can't be upset with those guys versus Kathleen Kennedy because do I feel like she kind of forced some things in the sequels? Yes, I think we kind of all think that some things were forced in the sequel, and then her being the head of it, there was clearly
come on now, give it to me.
I'm not doing
it. Give it to me.
Come
on now.
Come on. There was clearly a lack of direction from a storytelling point between those three movies, right? Because we start out with The Last Jedi, and then we have what's the second one called? I don't even remember.
The Last Jedi was the second one. The first one was The Force Awakens.
We started with The Force Awakens, then we have The Last Jedi, and then we have you can kind of tell that, all right, we got The Force Awakens. Oh, okay, this was not bad. It's not great either. Okay. And then we get The Last Jedi, and he's like, wait a minute. Like, what? Like, they don't seem, there seems to have been no cohesive or coherent thought about connecting those movies. And we all know with the last movie that Rian Johnson was basically told, fix this shit. No, who directed the last one?
J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams. He did. He told Rian Johnson what Disney told him. I feel like he was kind of put in a weird position. He basically told Rian Johnson, "Fuck you," because J.J. Abrams was told, "Fix this shit," and he did what he could. Like he tried to. He was like, "All right, so this happened in this movie. Let me see if this is working." Like he did what I think he could do, right? Given the time frame and what he had that he could do. So Kathleen Kennedy leaving, am I gonna cry tears over it? No, I ain't.
Moses, before you start,
any tears. So,
okay,
it's tough for me to say I'm happy because I feel like we do need to see what Jon Favreau and Filoni will do, even though like their track record is pretty good and pretty impressive. You know, Jon Favreau, live action Lion King, not that great. We don't care for it, but for the most part, those two guys have had some pretty solid careers.
Success,
right? Success in building storylines and stuff like that. So, if they're going to be in charge of a new saga or trilogy or whatever the case may be, or I know there's a room out there of resetting and erasing her movies, right? Making them like they didn't happen or whatever. That remains to be seen because at this point, like I'm down in the dumps over Star Wars. Like I'm just a battered man at this point.
So Moses, before you start, one thing I want to mention before anything else, as far as this is going, I just wanted to go ahead and just get it going, get it out of the way. So, before anything happens, I think I've said this before on this channel, I do like The Last Jedi for one main reason. I love how Luke's character was torn down, life got him down, he became old, he became bitter, people go through that, shit lets him down, and I feel like it's really good development for Kylo Ren. Those are my two things. Kylo was my guy. He was the closest thing we had.
I don't agree with that at all, but okay.
No, yeah, but again, that's my favorite thing about The Last Jedi. You
talking about life got him down. Like, so let me put in a situation. a guy I work with have worked with in the past. He called me up because I've switched roles, and he was talking about how he was envious of me being able to get out of the previous situation that we were in, and how things are fucked up, and how it's, the job is wearing on his soul and all that kind of stuff, and how he's just kind of trying to stick it out for the money and whatever the case may be. And at the same time, like, I'm thinking about this dude, I was like, you've been with the company 5 years. This company's been in existence for like 7 or 8. The CEO knows who the fuck you are, like knows your name. You took a whole country and grew it, like opened up the country for our company, right? And grew it, hired people, did everything, right? So people know who you are. And so, like, if people are unhappy in our organization, you have the name, the clout, the power to probably, if not make the change yourself, at least influence it. He does nothing. So I don't feel sorry for him, because you got the kind of power. Same thing with Luke. Like, Luke, you brought balance to the thing. You're the most powerful Jedi, one of the most powerful beings in the Star Wars universe, and you get down and cut your, for what? For what? Like, why did you do all that?
Yes, I know it doesn't make sense, especially to people who are basically like us. Again, we won't move out of a shitty situation and keep going and getting better. But that's the reason I like it. I like to reference Logan at this point. Let me get to it. I know
it's a dumb thing to have the power to make change and then do nothing about it. Like, I don't feel sorry for you. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that Luke was kind of like, oh, you know what? I'm just kind of giving up and throwing myself away.
But that happens to men when they get older. That's why the suicide rate is higher between like grown adults versus women. So because guys, their life beats them down. They realize that basically what they did, they could have done better. The mistakes they made. He brought back the Jedi only to have it destroyed by one of his apprentices, by his nephew. He failed. He saved Darth Vader, but failed to save his nephew. So to me, these are things that to him, even though he's a positive guy and all this stuff, life can get you down the dumps. Where I feel could have been handled better is a few different things, like how he got brought back into the light, how he got back into the involvement, the way Logan could have, like Logan was done. Like Logan was down the dumps with Professor X.
We say that, but now we know it was Palpatine doing the shit the whole damn time.
That's where I was going to get to. I was going to get to that next. But anyway.
I see you over there struggling, having a hard time right now.
Who?
Cuz he's right now. I need to hear his thoughts on this shit.
I'm about to wrap up. I'm about to wrap up. So my thing was this. My hope with The Last Jedi is that basically it finally gave us something new, something different, and Star Wars is going to go in a different direction. What was the name of the director who was scheduled before Abrams took over for the third movie, Moses? I forgot his name.
Fuck, man.
You know what? We'll get back to that in a second. Put it on. But anyway, point being, I saw the outline for the story he wanted to tell. Like, that would have been a perfect story that Last Jedi would have set up perfectly. And they wouldn't have done the fan service that ended up ruining Rise of Skywalker. They over-focused on fan service in Rise of Skywalker. So that's why I feel like finally ruined it. Like, it turned it to where they didn't think it was going to go, but they could have actually adapted and done better. But even though the guy left before, like, The Force Awakens came out. They should have stuck to what was happening at that point. So am I happy there's going to be more Star Wars? Yes. I'm actually happy that they might hopefully continue the saga with new numbers? Yes. Am I going to miss Kathleen Kennedy? Yes and no, I guess. Not really. She was in charge of Rogue One, which personally the best one, period, right?
Rogue One is a cop-out. Like, it's hard to fuck up Rogue One.
I know, but still, regardless, still one of the best ones, period. So, again, there's that. Force Awakens wasn't bad. It was still kind of like middle tier Star Wars movie, probably upper middle tier compared to some of the other ones, especially with the visuals and how it kind of brought back, introduced new characters, new storylines. Things got interesting. And as far as Last Jedi, again, I love how they handled Luke personally with how he was, and he was a hermit down in the dumps. Even Yoda ended up getting down in the dumps until he actually trained Luke because he actually went into hiding because he failed. So it even rhymes and repeats what's happened in the past before.
Luke didn't fail.
Luke ended up winning, but then he ended up failing. The issue is,
how did Luke fail?
his Jedi Academy got burned down by a student that he actually saved. It's repeating the same story that happened with what was like his dad, except that he was the cause of it. By him lighting the lightsaber, he lost hope in what it was his protege, and he got pulled to the dark side. He failed. Failed his students and failed basically to restore the Jedi Order in that sense. Now, that's the part where I go at. Like, yeah, that's the part where I kind of see that kind of happen, as well as even in the movie where Yoda says it's time for the Jedi to end, and he summons a lightning storm to to break down the books, even though technically Rey already took them. It shows how the Jedi Order technically failed even in the prequels. They were at the height of their power. They lost everything because they didn't see what was coming. Again, it was a conspiracy to take them over and throw everything else. But regardless, point being, new Star Wars numbers, I'm cool with it. I'm fine with it. Let's get them. I wouldn't mind seeing them in a couple years. I'm saying that because realistically, I don't think one will come out for at least a couple years, if that. I think Kathleen's contract ends in 2021. I think that's right. I could be wrong. Yeah. It's the end of this year. I think it's the end of this year. But no, yes. Well, I'll take new ones. Hell yeah. And I want Sebastian Stan to play young Luke. Just saying that. If they bring back Luke.
Okay. Because I initially thought about this. I'm just like, one, I hate people doing their job. Okay. I don't like people doing their job. But here's my thing, and then to go to both of y'all different points. Because it seemed like Fred got more into defending Last Jedi, and you was kind of like, I'm kind of still on the whole Kathleen Kennedy deal, okay? Now, let me say this. I think with Filoni and Favreau, it's probably the best option. Kathleen Kennedy stepping away. Okay, you served your time, sweetheart. You came in it. Here's where she fucked up. There was no coherent story.
Yep.
Okay? You can do Force Awakens. It's just have exactly where you wanted to go before the movie. You do that, and we don't hear none of this. It's simple. Fred, I get what you're saying about how you like Last Jedi and like how I did things different. That's fine. Okay? But the fact of the matter is, it does not blend with the other two movies. And the last movie, it's true. It's solely fan service. So that's, and honestly, you have to put that on Kathleen Kennedy. Because think about this. What if, let's say, Infinity War is completely different from everything else we done seen, and it bombs. And then somebody else comes in. They fired the Russo brothers because they did Infinity War and Endgame. Let's say, okay, we don't like what you did with Infinity War. We're going to come get somebody else to bring in Endgame, and they think it's completely different. The thing that worked about Kevin Feige is that he had this all mapped out. Kathleen Kennedy didn't.
Yep.
And her leaving, as much as I think it's like, okay, she did some things right, but granted, her biggest mistake was never actually having a plan for the material that she received. Thus, that has led to all of this stuff that we get now. And the fact that bringing in Filoni and Favreau, I'm like, okay, these guys, now granted, it's so much easier doing something after you see somebody else do it and fuck up at it, that it's kind of like it's like, oh, well, it's kind of, I'm sorry, it's like a fucking hyena. Granted, I don't want to call Favreau and Filoni hyena, but it's kind of like, okay, y'all, you did this. Let me come in and finish this shit off. Because we know now, if we make anything, we have to plan this shit out. The beginning, middle, and end. Now, there are some times where, like, some characters might not be received well. You might have to, like, change shit on the fly. But at the end of the day, we have to know where this shit's going to start and where this shit's going to end. So Kathleen Kennedy possibly stepping down is only a product of what she brought upon herself, which is odd coming from me because, like I said, I like I really love Force Awakens, but I would never ever deny the fact that, like, hey, this shit does not go together. These are three different movies that we've been in, and like that's a mistake.
Actually, we had that conversation not too long ago. I don't know if you remember. I think it was after we saw Rise of Skywalker, where we said you either watch The Force Awakens and then Rise of Skywalker and skip Last Jedi, or you can watch Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and not worry about whatchamacallit, The Rise of Skywalker. I believe that's
your only two options.
Yeah, those were the conversations we actually had because of that reason, because they didn't flow together.
And me personally, listen, now here's my thing. Here's something that I'm not big on, and that's George Lucas coming back. Let me tell you why I'm not big on George Lucas coming back. It's nothing against him. Is that I honestly believe they're gonna give George Lucas too much power, and since this is his baby. This is his baby.
Listen. I know you finna trash George Lucas, right? Because like he's probably made. I'm not gonna say probably. He's definitely made some questionable choices in his own movie. But at the same time, when he did it, that was his right. Those were his. He had nobody to answer to, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, with that being said, I'm gonna hit you with two words: Akira Toriyama. Dragon Ball Z gets a lot of passes for a lot of shit. It's like he's great, but that dude has made some dumb choices in what's his creation. Like it's his.
I cannot deny that.
They are both like in the like Akira Toriyama still has all the oversight into the Dragon Ball world, and even when like he was more active in doing stuff in Dragon Ball Z, even now some of the choices you'd be like. Why? What? Like, what are you doing? Why did you do this?
Fucking right. I hope the money changes that, but
so I know you was about to go in on George Lucas, but at the same time, remember another show genre that we love even more than Star Wars, and we like Akira seems to get passes sometimes for shit because it's Dragon Ball Z, which is this beloved anime that paved the way for the big three. You know what I'm saying? Like he made way for the big three. Passes for shit fans just kind of gloss over because he'll give us something later on, but it's like, wait a minute, they kind of two in the same in what they kind of did. You know what?
First he's sour, then he's sweet.
Right. So I try to not because I agree with you. I try not to be so hard on George because I'm not as hard on Akira for the dumb shit he do.
Agreed.
The Dragon Ball franchise. So like I try to cut George a little slack. I try to come a little slack on some of the dumb, Jar Jar Binks and making Hayden Christian act the way that he did in the prequel movie.
The Phantom Menace, period.
Right. I try to cut George a little slack because it is his vision, his baby. Because I give Akira that same slack. So like,
I agree.
I do agree with you. Right? They may give George a little power because they may be kind of looking at him and like, come save us, come fix what we fucked up and what we didn't understand. But I think a lot of people forget, like when George did the original trilogy, he changed a lot of shit. There was no cohesive story originally that he was going to do, right? Like
Luke Star Killer was his name originally.
He did a New Hope and it was a hit, and he didn't plan the next two movies weren't completely planned out. He just kind of lucked up in there, and then even with the prequel, right? Like the prequels were pretty much you had prequel fans and original trilogy fans, and they did not agree on any. The only thing that brought them together was their hatred for Disney, for the Disney sequels. Because I grew up in the world where when I was a kid, the prequels were coming out. So like those are my movies. So I have a fondness for those movies. The original trilogy, I think is okay. It's good, but like to me, it doesn't compare. But like you get the sequel trilogy, and then those two fans who didn't agree for years are like, you know what? We may not like each other, but universally, we don't like that shit.
At least they shit flow together though.
Exactly. Like their shit flows. Like there's a story between the prequels and the original trick. Like it flows, it makes sense. It's like, okay, I get this. And you're right. Like Kathleen Kennedy, she brought that on herself. Like she was handed one of the most popular franchises in history. Like she was handed one and was told, you gotta finish off this saga, right? 3 movies finishes off, and you're right. She didn't have a plan, and you made the point that Favreau, Feige, Filoni. The 3 Fs. I just realized all their names ended there. They get to go in, and you said kind of fix it, and they get to see the fuck up. I ain't gonna say that. Feige had a plan for Marvel Universe from jump, because if you watch that interview with Robbie Downey Jr. in that show Chef. And they talk about it, and Robert talks about how when they came to him, they had this idea. They had kind of a loosely based plan for this cinematic universe, and Robert was like, "What?" Like they had an idea, like a loose plan from it. Like you said, they could shift things around if stuff didn't change, right? Like how Thor or Chris Hemsworth didn't really care for Thor in the first 2 movies, and they handed it to Taika, and Taika changes it. Now Chris is like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to do 8 more movies as Thor, right? Like they made the shift. They had the plan laying out. Like I feel like a lot of that falls on Kathleen. She didn't have I think she thought, I have Star Wars. It's gonna speak for itself. It's just it's gonna be successful because it's Star Wars. And then you know what? We get Force Awakens is okay. Then we get The Last Jedi, and then they do Solo, and people start thinking, well, maybe we should have thought this through a little bit. So like I'm like you, I don't ever want anybody losing their job, but at the same time, you have to take responsibility for what you did. And one thing that we all know, Disney does not like controversy. They don't play that shit.
Nope.
They don't play that shit.
They do not.
They don't like that shit at all. So like you can have a movie and it be bomb, but as long as it's not like feminism or female or like lack of diversity, like as long as you ain't crossing like some of those social moral lines, whatever the case may be, I think Disney would be okay if you have a bad movie. But like there was just so much controversy and hatred going on with those movies, and I think unfortunately like she becomes a scapegoat because she's the head of Star Wars. Like she's the head of Star Wars. So like I do feel bad that she's losing her job, because I feel like she could have, if she had just had a plan and made it cohesive, right? It would have been okay. I think it would have been better than what it was, because I never thought about it till you guys said it. You don't have to watch all 3 of those movies. Like you can watch 2 and just end it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's also another thing that I was gonna say, in the fact that, like you said, how George Lucas, when the first Star Wars came out, it was like, okay, he didn't have an actual plan where he wanted to go, but then he makes a second one. But that's because he's writing it.
Yeah, he's in
There's
control.
one person.
Yeah,
There's one person. Like you had J.J. Abrams do The Force Awakens. Now, if you didn't have a plan for it at all, and you have J.J. Abrams come do the first one and then be like, well, J.J., go ahead and do the second one.
Yeah.
It's going to blend together.
That would have been better.
Because
that would have been better.
Stuff.
Right.
Exactly.
I think this goes into what we were talking about with the MCU directors being in a box, right? Because it's like she handed it to Rian Johnson and probably just told him, go do what you need to do. Well, MCU does that as well, but within these lines, right? Like you can tell Rian Johnson, go do what you want to do, but you need to stay within these confines, right? Like you can't just tell him, oh, go do what you want to do, because he did. Like he took his vision and what he thought and what he wanted to be and did it. And it seems like no one corrected or tried to change. Well, maybe you should take this out, put this. No one did that. And then you bring JJ back and it's like, help us, please. Can you? And what?
It's kind of like.
Didn't George consult on Rise of Skywalker?
Yes, George was consulted.
He consulted on Rise of Skywalker. So like you, not only do you bring JJ back, you bring George back. It's like, well, take a look at this for us. Make sure is this okay? Like, does this make sense to you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's like, no, this doesn't match this. So like, you just basically, you're like, okay.
Oh yeah, fuck it.
Let's wait for you to like. Then it just became entertainment.
Right.
You know,
right.
Like, just entertainment. Okay. Have a team. Fuck it. Put it in there.
Now,
Give
here's
me,
what.
give me a voiceover. Fuck it, put him in there. Like you
Right,
just
bring it
Han
back.
Solo. They like Solo. Get it. Tell Harrison Ford. We give $10 million just for a cameo. Get him in there. Something. Like that's what it became.
Right.
Like,
Snoke.
Another monkey wrench was also
Snoke never mattered.
Carrie dying.
We just kill him off. We'll make him Palpatine. That's how we'll cover up Snoke. They want to know who Snoke was. It was Palpatine all along. Doesn't matter. Like they did.
Yeah.
It was
boy, I
complete.
forgot he was even a part of shit.
Right. They Game of Thrones. They
Got
Game
the
of
name.
Thrones. Snoke.
Bro, I forgot all about that dude. Man.
They Game of Thrones. Snoke.
Yep.
Man, that dude was a vital part in the first movie.
Yep.
I forgot that dude existed, bro.
That's what they.
Oh my God.
They achieved what they wanted to. That's what they wanted you to do. Forget about Snoke.
Yep. But actually, one thing I do want to mention right quick before we go on, George's defense. To be fair, George's track record may have issues in the smaller details, but the way I see it, he's made probably one movie that I basically can say that was not good. The rest of them I enjoy. So I mean, I'll take those odds with George coming back in. So that's just me.
I don't love the Phantom Menace.
He only technically directed it for.
Phantom Menace,
and one of them's bad.
Is my least favorite, but at the same, like it's his universe, right? Like
yeah,
it is kind of boring. It doesn't like it, but like for his, like you said, it's cohesive. Like I may not like it, but it's cohesive.
It was supposed to be on my top 5 worst movies I've seen in my life. I forgot to put it.
One thing I gotta mention, we just all, guys, we just all agree on Star Wars.
I think we agreed on this. I think we agreed that
we don't agree. I think we don't agree on Disney's trilogy. I think for the most part we all agree.
No, we agree that it wasn't cohesive in critiques that we were making about Star Wars, and we all agree that Kathleen Kennedy stepping down is a good thing, and we all agreed that bringing out Favreau, Filoni, and George is going to be good as well.
It's a good thing because of who you're bringing in.
Yeah, that's what I was continuing. So
yeah, because you're bringing in those guys. It's like okay, like
we trust them.
Favreau seems to have a good grasp. You know, seeing the Mandalorian, like he's kind of understand like. You can do.
And Lucas is there too.
You can do a Star Wars story and not have. I mean, don't get me wrong. I always want to see a Jedi fight. Like I want to see the laser sword, the lightsabers. I always want to see it. But the Mandalorian is good enough. You're like, you know what? You can do this story and not have to do fan service and throw Beta in the hallway killing folks, right? Like you can do a good one without it, right? Like you said,
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that.
Nobody ever complaining.
Never.
It is a good movie without Darth Vader. That little scene at the end is just icing on the cake because it's a fantastic. At no point through that movie am I thinking this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. No, I'm thinking this is great. I am one with the Force is with me. Like there's no point in that movie where I'm like it's bad. Like this movie's good, and then I see Vader at the end. It's like oh well, that's bravo. Like thank you, bravo. Like you can't go wrong. So like yeah, they're good.